Hey y'all, it's Crystal in Kentucky. I know I've been keeping you up to date with the denture process that I'm going through right now, but I do have an appointment with them tomorrow. Today I wanted to talk about something else. So I'm Crystal, I'm 46. I live in Kentucky right now, but I'm originally from Mississippi. The only other state I've lived in is Alabama. Um, I don't know why I've been thinking about this particular thing like a lot lately, but I guess you could just call it unresolved trauma. Um, but as the caption of the video says, I was engaged to someone who turned out to be basically a killer, but he was also a bigamist. He was married to two other women at the same time that he was engaged to me. I know it sounds crazy as hell, but it's true. This happened. Um, and my hair looks crazy today. That's because the wind's been blowing really hard, and so it looks 10 ways from crazy. I apologize about that. But anyway, back to my story. So, 2012, I was living in Bowling Green, Kentucky, managing some locations out there, and my mom at the time lived in Alabama, in Coleman, Alabama. And she was in and out of ICU. She'd gotten really sick. She had COPD, emphysema, congestive heart failure, a host of problems. Well, anyway, so in 2012, after they gave my mom a few months to live, I decided that I wanted to move to Alabama so that I could spend as much time with her as possible, before she passed. And I was a single mother. I had a 12 and 14-year-old. That's how old they were then. But so I found a job managing a finance company, and I moved down there. And I lived in a little town called Hartselle, Alabama. Uh, Nice enough little town. Not too much there, but you were close to bigger cities like Decatur and Huntsville if you wanted to, go do extra stuff. Um, While I was down there, I guess probably about three and a half months in, my mom died. So, of course, it was a really depressing, like lonely time. Now, I had a sister that lived there too, but at the time she was married to a crazy, controlling psycho, basically. So even though she lived a couple of miles from me, I really didn't see her much at all. And like I said, my kids were 12 and 14. So, they had their friends that they'd made and activities and stuff they did. And so I was left alone a lot of the time. And, when you are there and you're alone by yourself all the time, you don't really have any, friends there because you just moved there basically. You have family, but you'd have to drive, 4.5, 5 hours to go visit family because, like I said, my sister wasn't easily accessible all the time. But anyway, so I started feeling like super lonely, and I decided that I wanted to try a dating platform. Kind of put myself out there and meet people. Even if you don't hit it off with somebody, maybe you could be friends, somebody that you could hang out with, go out to eat with occasionally, something. So I signed up on Plenty of Fish, of all places. And just like the rest of you, if you've ever used that platform, I found out that it wasn't actually a dating website. It was more of like a hookup site. Because whenever you would talk to people, the first thing they would ask you is, something about your attributes, like how big are your breasts, what's your butt look like? And so it was really hard to have like a meaningful conversation with anybody. You'd have one occasionally that would start out, like it's going to be a normal conversation, but then it'd turn into something crazy too. So I blocked a lot of people. A lot. Um, so I did meet a few people off of there that, I had a date with, meet up in a public place, at a restaurant or something, coffee. Well, there was this one guy. His name was Chris. And we had been chatting, and um, he told me that he was from Huntsville, Alabama. He had recently relocated back from Michigan. He was divorced. He had a 10-year-old daughter, and he lived with his mom currently until he got his own place. He worked in HVAC. He was my age, basically. And like I said, he'd been married and divorced. And I thought, okay, a single father. I agreed to meet him for coffee after, chatting a few times, getting the basics of who he was, I guess. So we met for coffee and probably sat there and talked for a couple hours at least. And then, of course, I agreed to see him again. Now, I won't lie to you, I was not attracted to him at all. He wasn't my type. I'd never gone out with, anybody that was a redhead with fair skin. Not that there's anything wrong with that because, that's me. But, opposites attract. You usually don't want to date someone that's the same version of you. Well, and not just that, but at the time I was really into fitness, wanting to take care of myself, take care of my body. And he was the complete opposite. He was on the bigger side, and there's nothing wrong with that because 4 years ago I was 400 pounds. But he was kind of sloppy with it. And what I mean by that is hanging from the bottom of his shirt, because his shirt was never long enough, but hanging from the bottom of his shirt, his stomach would hang out. And then if he ever bent over, you'd see the butt crack. So sloppy dressing is basically what I'm saying. And now I was, in a very professional field. So I'm having to wear, these cute little short dresses and big heels and big purses. I had to have a certain image with this company. So it was definitely opposites attract. But like I said, I don't really judge people. So we went out several more times, and then once I got a little more comfortable with him, I invited him over to the house one Friday night, see if he wanted to, watch a movie, eat pizza, something. And he asked me if he could spend the night that night, and I told him that I didn't feel comfortable with it, but that if he, really wanted to, he could sleep on the couch. So I had my daughter come sleep in the bed with me. I locked my door because, I watch the ID channel all the time. I know it's a lot of crazies out there. And I was super overprotective of my daughter because of some of the things I went through in my past as a child. But anyway, so he spent the night that night. The next day we agreed to meet up in Decatur, and we went to the mall, we went to the movies, we went out to eat, and we did that for several more times. And then he started spending the weekends. So he would come by my office through the week. He would bring flowers, chocolates, being really sweet, basically, cards and stuff. And then on Fridays, he would come over on Fridays after work, and he would stay through Sunday. He would leave Sunday noontime and say, I have to get back to my daughter, I got to take care of her, which is understandable. So fast forward a little bit because I know I'm rambling. I asked him one day, I said, why haven't I met your daughter yet? You've met my kids, you've stayed at my house, you've met some of my family members. I think it's weird that I haven't met her or your mom yet. And he also had a sister that lived in Huntsville too, he said, and cousins and whatnot. But anyway, he was like, well, I I don't like to introduce my daughter to anybody unless it's a permanent type situation, you know, getting feelings involved, which I completely understand because I was the same way with my kids. So I thought, okay, well, he's just being protective. Well, then several more months go by, and I was going down to Mississippi to visit some family one weekend, and he wanted to go. So we went down there, and, you know, he met my grandma. We were at my grandma's house. He met a bunch of my other family members, my uncles and stuff that came over, my dad, my stepmom, and my sisters and my brother and their spouses, like everybody. And it was weird, but at this particular time, I didn't know that he had taken my father to the side and asked him if he could marry me. Which of course, you know, my dad was like, well, as long as my daughter's happy, I'm happy. You know, that's all that matters, that, you know, she's happy and, you know, nobody's mistreating her or whatever. And anyway, we get back from Mississippi to Alabama, and we're there talking, and he gives me a ring one night when we pulled up. It was a weeknight, like a Tuesday, Wednesday night. We went out to eat, and we pulled back into the, you know, carport. It was a carport, and he had the ring, and he was like, so do you want to get married? And that's how he asked. So of course, you know, I was at the phase in my life where technically you can call it I settled. Because as I stated, he wasn't really my type. I found things to be a little weird, such as, you know, not meeting the child, the mother and stuff. So it's not like I didn't see the red flags. They were there. I just didn't question them enough, or I didn't put more importance on them as much as I should have. But anyway, so I said yes, and a couple of more months in, I'm engaged to you at this point. Why the hell have I not met your family? Something is going on. You know, does your family, like, not want you to date? You have somebody else over in Huntsville that you're dating in between, and your family knows her and not me. What the hell is going on? We got into a fight. I hung up on him. I blocked him. I didn't want anything else to do with them because I'm too damn old to be trying to play games. So anyway, he flew from Huntsville to Hartselle, where I was living, busted through the door and was like, no, you're going to talk to me. You're not going to block me out of your life. If I can't have you, nobody else to have you. And I'm sitting here thinking, okay, this has gone a little left. But, you know, some people, they get emotional. I guess they can be temperamental, have a little temper tantrum. So, again, another red flag I did not put any importance on. I was like, oh, okay, well, you know, he's having a little off day. Everybody can be crazy every now and then, I guess. But anyway, so that happened. Well, then a few weeks later, he took me over to his cousin's house to meet his cousin and his wife and kids and some of their friends or whatever. So I thought, okay, well, we're moving in the right direction. Maybe that message got across. So there was that. And then, of course, I kept pressing the issue of meeting his, you know, family. So at this point, we had went back down to Mississippi for another visit. And when we came back, the only thing he could talk about was, you need to move back to Mississippi. I think we should move down there. You know, your family is great. You can tell they really miss you. You know, don't you want to be back down there with them? So after a few weeks of this, I started, you know, job searching for, you know, down in that area. And had a couple of interviews. Eventually, I got a job in banking again. And paid for everything, the deposits, utilities getting turned on, the moving cost, all of that. Paid for all that and got moved down there. And he was supposed to come with his daughter the following weekend because supposedly while I was doing all that, he was interviewing down there and he had got a job. So we get down there and I basically just jumped on the first thing I could find to move into to get there. And anyway, we get down there, and the next weekend, he tells me, oh, something's come up. My daughter's sick. I can't come. The following weekend, there was something going on. And then the third weekend, he came down. He wanted to take my daughter shopping and bought her some clothes. And he was just being really nice and super affectionate. And at the time, I should have realized that it was like a goodbye. Not, I'll see you when I move back next week, but a goodbye. Because at that point, he never came back down again. A few weeks passed. I'm getting impatient because we're 6 weeks in. And I start hounding him. You know, why have you not moved down here? Like, what's going to happen with the job that you got? And you were supposed to start several weeks ago. When are you coming down here? Why would you talk me into moving here if you were not coming down here? You know, all the normal questions. And anyway, like I said, he was just super nice that weekend. And saying stuff like, I just want you to know, I really do love you, and, stuff like that. And it was weird. It was super weird, and I should have paid more attention. But anyway, so he goes back to Alabama. The following week after that, I find black mold where me and the kids are staying. And mind you, I uprooted them from schools too. But I find black mold in the place that we're staying. So me and the kids go stay at my grandmother's house and put my stuff in storage until I can find another place. And my grandma has, a small 2-bedroom house. So me and the kids slept in one bed in the other bedroom. And one night we were laying in bed, and my daughter was to the left of me, my son was to the right. And we were all laying there, playing on our phones, looking at our phones, like most people do. And mind you, before this happened too, I forgot this part. But at one point, he had deleted me off his Facebook during the 6-week period that I was waiting for him to come back down. And then he wouldn't call and talk to me on the phone. It was just a lot of texting. And then supposedly he broke his leg. He was in the hospital. All kind of crazy stuff. But anyway, we were laying in bed that night. And I remember my daughter making the statement of, who is this woman with Chris? And I was like, what? And she was like, yeah, this woman with Chris. Who is this woman? She's pregnant. And so I'm like looking at it. So he forgot to delete or block my daughter on his Facebook. And that update popped up and we saw it. But anyway, in this picture, it was him and this woman who was clearly pregnant. She looked to be about 5 months or so. And her son, she had a young son, I think he was 8. They were all in the picture, and she said, what a great time we had with Chris showing my baby how to swim, teaching my baby how to swim tonight, blah, 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 blah. And I was devastated. I was just devastated. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking to myself, I downgraded to somebody who didn't even deserve to be with me. And this is what I got. I mean, I was thinking that in the back of my mind, I was. But then I was like, what the freak? So this woman looks like she's 5 months pregnant. So clearly he was with this woman the same time he was with me. So of course, I called him, cussed him out, told him I never wanted to see him again, and that was it, right? No. About 4 months later, I think it was, again, laying in bed, I was looking at Facebook, and the local Alabama news channel had a live update. And I had that channel because I had been in Alabama and I never took it off, so I still saw all of the, local news. So it popped up and I saw that woman, the same woman I saw in the picture with Chris, and her son. And at that picture, it looked like she was like due any day. And it was a picture of them basically like her son had the little earpiece up to his ear and the other piece was to the stomach, like they were on the telephone with the baby. And it was a crime article, and it said that local Huntsville man murdered 5, I think it said, and then set house on fire. And I was like, what? So I'm scrolling down. I'm fixated on it now. I'm reading the whole article, and I see his name. I see his name. And then I read exactly what it was that he did. This woman that was due to have her baby a week later married Chris, not knowing that he was married to another woman in Michigan. And her name was Rhonda. She found out a few weeks before she was due to have their daughter. And she went to court. She had an EPO put out on him. She had paperwork filed to where he couldn't have anything to do with the baby, like all kind of stuff. And her dad had a security system installed in her house because at the time she was at her mom's house, at her parents' house. Well, anyway, I'm reading the article, and it says that he found Kristen, that was her name. He found Kristen in the garage. He shoots her and then cuts the baby out and stabs it and kills it. Then he goes in the house, stabs the 1-year-old nephew in the baby bed that's taking a nap, and then goes into the kitchen where her 67-year-old mother and her 8-year-old son are both shot in the head. And then to cover his tracks, he pours gas everywhere and sets the house on fire, not knowing that her father had those cameras up. And the woman that was with him when he committed this crime was the other wife, Rhonda. And my heart just sank. I didn't know what to think. I was so freaking traumatized. I laid there and thought about, like, how could I have not seen this? I laid beside this person. I slept beside this person. This person was around my freaking kids. Like, how could I have not seen this? And immediately, I text my oldest sister and I'm telling her about it. And I have her look it up. And she's freaking out. She's like, oh my God, this was God's way to, bring you back down here. Because, this could have happened to you and the kids. Because, you wouldn't have put up with anything. And, if you'd have shut him out, he would have got mad. And, maybe that's true. I don't know. Maybe I was meant to go back down there for a reason. But I was devastated. I never talked to anyone about it, as far as a therapist or anything like that. I've just, kind of dealt with it and moved on. I will say this, though. It's made it really hard to trust people. I pretty much close up. Like, I give people small pieces. But I don't know, like, if you can ever really fully, trust somebody. But anyway, I wanted to share that piece of trauma of mine with you all today. Believe me, I have more. I have the link posted below of the article. Chris and Rhonda are both sitting on death row right now in Alabama. They were sentenced to death, both of them, as they should have been for the crime that they committed. But let me know if you have any comments, if you have any questions. I'm pretty transparent. I'll, tell you whatever I can about it. But hopefully in one way this will help somebody in, recognizing when something's wrong. Because I should have paid more attention to it. But anyway, hope you guys enjoyed the video of my rambling, and hope to see you all soon.